Hello everyone, I am Sameera, Research Scholar, Calicut University. I would like to discuss the topic Renaissance. Have you heard about the term Renaissance? What does the term Renaissance mean? Renaissance means rebirth or revival. We can consider Renaissance as a form of development in the field of literature, art and intellect. It began in Italy in the 14th century. At the time of Renaissance, people were interested in the learning of great classical works, especially Greek. It was an intellectual rebirth that changed the mental outlook of the individuals. In the Middle Ages, all the aspects of an individual were governed by two rigid institutions, namely feudalism and the church. At the time of Renaissance, people began to concentrate on themselves and their individuality. They began to pay attention to their right to live, to think and express themselves. Now, let's look which are the factors that led to Renaissance. The first important factor is the change in the mentality of the individual. In the Middle Ages, people were highly religiously devotional and they paid less attention to their individuality. But there came a shift in this mentality and they began to concentrate on themselves and human beings on earth. This change in attitude led to the outbreak of Renaissance. The second factor that led to Renaissance is the introduction of a new curriculum in the universities. Many of the universities introduce humanities subjects like history, geography, poetry and languages in their curriculum, and it brought about a change in the mental outlook of the individuals. The invention of printing press is an important factor that contributed to Renaissance. With the coming of printing press, a lot of translations of the great classical works began to distribute among the public, and it also helped in the arrival of Renaissance. The capture of Constantinople by the Turks in 1453 is another factor that contributed to Renaissance. With the capture of Constantinople, many Greek scholars began to settle in Italy and they took with them the manuscripts of the works of various great classical masters like Homer, Euripides, Sophocles, Plato and Aristotle, which contain a humanistic view of life. Now, let's have a look at some of the features of Renaissance. Humanism is the first important feature of Renaissance. Humanism is a philosophical idea that gives importance to human beings. It concentrates on human achievements and potential rather than religion. Second important feature is the interest in secularism or non-religious worldly matters. In the Middle Ages, people were highly religious and they paid little attention to worldly matters. At the time of Renaissance, their attention shifted from religion to secular or worldly matters. Individualism is the next important feature of Renaissance. What is individualism? Individualism is a social theory that favors freedom of action for individuals over collective or state control. With the flourishing of knowledge, people began to question various aspects that existed in the current scenario. So, a questioning attitude in people is another feature of Renaissance. Rise of the middle class is one of the important features of Renaissance, and a lot of achievements in the field of art, literature and intellect also took place in this period. What distinguished Renaissance from the Middle Ages? During the Middle Ages, the main aim was to find God and they tried to prove preconceived ideas, whereas at the time of Renaissance, the main aim was to find man and promote learning. The love for humanity is found at the time of Renaissance. Next is about major figures of Renaissance. Petrarch, Boccaccio, Raphael, Michelangelo, Pico della Mirandola, were the early exponents of Renaissance in Italy. Petrarch, Spenser, Shakespeare are the important poets at the time of Renaissance, and Leonardo da Vinci is one of the important painter, sculptor, architect and scientist at the time of Renaissance. Next is regarding Renaissance in England. Renaissance reached England from Italy in the 15th century. The age of Shakespeare can be considered as the era of Renaissance in England. Caxton's printing press, which was established in 1476, played a significant role in promoting Renaissance in England. With the arrival of printing, the people of England got accession of translations of great classical works. Influence of Renaissance on literature. The first important influence that Renaissance had on literature is the influence of humanism. Humanism considers man as the supreme creation of God, man as the crown of creation. We can find the influence of humanism in the works of Marlowe, Shakespeare, Spenser, Bacon, etc. Next is the influence of the spirit of discovery and adventure. Ocean became the highway of national progress and adventures, and many voyagers began to write travelogues or stories of their adventures, and this influenced various writers of this period. The Merchant of Venice, Othello, The Twelfth Night and The Tempest by Shakespeare are influenced by the account of these voyagers. Next is the influence of classical learning. Two great Greek classical writers, Plato and Aristotle, provided model for the writers of this period. We can see the influence of these writers, that is Plato and Aristotle, in the works written during this period. Thomas More's Utopia and Bacon's New Atlantis are examples that modeled on great classical works. Next is the influence of the spirit of rational and scientific quest. The spirit of reason and science influenced the writings of various writers of this period. We can see Bacon's essays and Ben Jonson's plays as examples of those influenced by the spirit of reason and scientific quest. That's all about Renaissance. Thank you.